Even the guys that,
That's a little slow, and I'm thinking I'm going to make an announcement before call the meeting to order. Council's invited, and encourage all council be here at 4 o'clock for pictures to present a check for the new recreation facility, regional facility, and it'll be here in the office here. 4 o'clock, yeah. And with that, I'll call the council meeting to order. And we have one addition. Before we get started, I passed out a request for decision. We'll put that on as 2.2L. And then is there any other additions to the agenda? Ben,
I'll move the agenda as amended.
you have one? Okay. What's that?
under signs,
Under signs?
under K.
M, signs is all you want on the agenda? Signs. Okay. Brenda. Any other additions? Ben includes that addition? Okay, all in favor? Carried. We have an appointment at 11:30, and then public hearings at 1 and 3 o'clock. We have I don't know if that's an appointment, must be update Wheatland compost site. Okay, adoption of the minutes, May 16th, 2017, public hearing minutes, bylaw 2016-63. Alice?
I so move the minutes for the meeting.
For bylaw 216-63?
Yes. Thank you.
Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. New business, request for decision, modified voting procedure bylaw. Ben?
I'll move, excuse me, I'll move approval for first reading.
Ben's moved first reading. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Don?
I'll move second.
Don has moved second reading. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. And permission? Alice? Has to be unanimous or we can't continue. Everyone's aware. All in favor? Carried, passed unanimously. And third?
I'll move third.
Ben has moved third. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do have a question. Where are all the voting stations going to be?
I'm thinking we'd have to wait and see who's having an election first.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, but we would anticipate if there's certain divisions, such as the bigger divisions, like out in the east part of the county, 7 and 1 in particular, if there is elections in those areas, that there would be more than one polling station. So that's why we need to do this. Yes. I don't know at this time where they're going to be, because we don't know who's running until September, till nomination day.
So with that question then, after the nominations, then you would still have lots of time to set up another station.
That's correct. So what we've done, our returning officer, Terry Tower, has tentatively booked different facilities throughout
Okay.
the county. And then depending on what areas we need, what divisions we need to run elections in, then we confirm those up.
Okay,
So the days have been set aside, so.
that's good then. Ellis?
We haven't heard from anybody at Gleason, so the community association has made sure that date is not going to be booked for the Gleason Hall. So Alan, you can, yep, and I haven't talked to Clooney yet, but I'm sure they do the same. So just so you know, nobody's contacted us yet, so, but we've done that.
Okay. Move on to the next one, request for decision, group crisis intervention. Crisis course.
I'll move the recommended action that attendance of the Fire and Emergency Management Coordinator and the Deputy Fire Chief for a 2-day group crisis and 1 overnight stay in September.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, WID, option to purchase. Ben?
We take the recommendation and sell it to them.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, offer to purchase. Alice?
I need a minute because my
Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes. You got it? Okay. Okay, we're on page 16. Request for decision, offer to purchase.
I'll move the Wheatland County Council approve the option to purchase agreement to sell. Is
No,
that
no,
the-
no,
oh,
no, no,
Western near,
no, we've already done that. We're on page 16
Redlands.
now, yes.
I'm sorry, that's I'll move that one. Wheatland County Council not accept an offer to purchase roll 4974000 in the amount of $2,000 based on the information as presented on the RFD.
Okay, any questions? Edna? This land was acquired in a tax thing from years ago. So it's really county property now.
What, how many acres? Like,
It's a lot, 66.7 feet by 125 feet. It's right in the corner of the block, I guess. Sided by 2 roads and an alley, pretty well. It's a buildable lot, but there's nothing on it, I don't think, but hay. It goes around Hayes, got some horses there, yeah. $10,000. Alice?
If you look at the one picture there, it shows like there's some buildings and even a house or a barn or something on that property.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
there could be some.
Yeah, So I don't know if it's a house or it's a barn, but still.
I don't know, it might be bales too.
Yeah, 2,000 versus the value is 10,000 some dollars. It's basically it's too low of a bid, so we're better to hold the land than to give it away. My opinion.
Okay, no, it's fine, I just had some.
Sorry, turn your mic on, Brenda.
No, I'm good. I just had some questions regarding to it, I guess, because this is, I was looking at the location of the parcel, so, and the size. So I just wondered how we come up with the assessment value of it.
Okay. So Alice has moved that we don't accept the offer. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, amend sale and consolidation of road closure area. Alice?
Wheatland County Council approve an amended, my computer's still giving me trouble, to purchase and sale agreement for the area of undeveloped road within 29, 24, 22 west of 4th, being closed under bylaw 2015-53 with Ross Williams Collin and the Standard Stock Farm Limited to remove the requirement of Class 3 consolidation with the adjacent land based on the information as presented in this RFD. I've had a contact with them, and they have come back to the county, and the issues or the concept defined is clear. So I recommend approval.
Okay, Alice has moved. Is there any questions or concerns? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, Wheatland Crossing Playground funding. Council's wishes.
Question.
Alice?
Question to the CAO. Is there any funding available for the playground? I know we've been back and forth on this a few times, but I'm not sure just what is left, if there is any money left.
Page
In,
26,
Chairman?
it says,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, Alan.
Yeah, on page 26, Mr. Chairman, under financial, currently there is a $214,031 in reserve that may be used for this. A portion of that could be used for this project on page 26 of your package.
14,000?
214,031.
214,000.
Shortfall of 125.
I think it's more than that, but they wanted 125 so they could go to a SIP grant. That's the max they can ask for. And then they are going to try and double that 125 they get from us for a $250,000 for playground. So that's what they're doing, and that's why the 125,000, it's the max they can go on that grant. So the question being is, what is the county prepared to put 125,000 from that? That's MRI funding, which is for playgrounds, right? Yeah. Parks, yeah. So that's the question. So do we want some discussion on that, or?
That's why it's here.
I'll put a motion on the table, then we can discuss that. Council approved providing 125,000 to the Wheatland Crossing Playground project.
Okay. Question? Brenda?
So on that, So that's from municipal reserves then? It's coming from MRI? Okay, it wasn't coming from parks, MR,
MR. Oh,
municipal, sorry,
I put the I
municipal
over there.
reserve. So it's not coming out of our parks and recreation then?
There's a portion of the MR, 75% school and 25% parks.
Right, okay, that's right too. And where do our cemeteries lie out of this funding? So we have a separate fund for cemeteries? Okay. I just didn't, did a tour of one the other day.
I don't know if cemeteries would qualify for MR funding. It seems like maybe a stretch. Yeah, it'd be a stretch. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, no, that was my concern.
Okay,
Because-
Alice?
So, a question to Alan. Under the SIP grant, I don't believe you can collect money from a government body and double it, like do this grant. Now, is it because it's from Parks and Recreation that they would be allowed to use that 125? Because I don't think they qualify. You can't take government funds and ask for a double your government grant, funds. So I don't think they're going in the right direction on this grant. They're being misled or maybe don't understand the rules on it. But this is government.
These aren't government funds.
Yes, it is.
MR isn't government funding.
Okay,
So MR is developers.
okay. So then that should qualify. That was my only concern.
Or once you
Okay. That was my concern, that it's not in other words, it's not tax dollars, it's municipal reserve from developers. Okay, in that case, then, I agree.
Okay. The MR money is the 10% money on subdivisions. Okay. And it says in here that there is a grant here. It doesn't say they need money from us to apply for the grant. It just says they've applied for the grant already. Didn't say it was hinged on. And there is a shortfall of 150,000, it says in the letter. Okay, so the 125 is the grant amount they're applied for, 150 is the shortfall. And Ben has made a motion that we fund 125,000 out of MR. Okay, any other discussion or questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Request for decision, Wheatland Regional Corporation project update.
I'll move we accept it as information for now.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, tax penalties. Property tax roll 9456060. Alice?
I move that we follow that the council not approve the reversal of tax penalties in the amount of $67.34 on property tax roll 9456060 for reasons given.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, tax penalties. And per agenda item.
I'll move the council not approve the reversal of tax penalties in the amount of 3532.59 on the properties mentioned.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision, tax agreement for, tax agreements for property taxes. Alice?
I move that the council direct staff to proceed with the tax agreement with the owner of properties currently eligible for tax auction scheduled November 16th of 2017, and recommendations attached, or the information attached.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Request for decision correspondence. I guess the first piece of correspondence is this certificate. Don, did you see this already? Our MP, Honorable Martin Shields, sent that to Wheatland County. Got a letter on volunteers from Alberta Culture and Tourism Office. A letter from Eagle Lake RV Resort. Alice?
I have a question on that. How do we put that out for our volunteers to know that the minister thinks this? So do we put it on the website for everybody? Okay, because different times, you know, when you're discussing doing things in the community, a lot of the volunteers feel that they're being forgotten. And I was going to bring that as a subject one day, that maybe on the committee of the whole, is how do we engage those volunteers, and what would we put in place to make sure that they celebrate them somehow? Because I know even myself, when we talk at the community hall, we say we work hard, but we never get recognized. And so that's where this question's coming from for me. So how do we get that out to the public so they know they are being recognized?
Through the chair, in this letter, if you read it from Martin Shields, it's asking the communities to put names forward for nominations for the 2017 Stars of Alberta Volunteer Award.
I know.
So they're asking the communities to put the names forward. It's not for us, it's for the communities. So all you gotta do is get this, send this notice out to your community groups and members, and let them make their own decisions on who their volunteers are that they want to recognize.
Yeah, but we've done that. So here's the rub. A lot of people, members that do volunteer, they don't feel that they should be, you know, peeping their own horn, because they feel if they put their names forward or this
No,
name or
no,
that.
it's not them putting their names forward, it's the community putting the names forward of
know.
the members of the community.
I know, but Ben, that's not what's happening.
Well,
And so,
you
how
can't-
do
you
we
can't-
get those names forward?
You can't dictate to them what they're gonna do.
I know, but it's, like I say, we need to do something to maybe make them more aware, or, I don't know, because there's good volunteers that should be recognized and they're not getting recognized.
I understand what you're saying, but through the chair, these communities, and we've got lots of them out there, and they have lots of people volunteering, and usually they recognize their volunteers. And for us to step in there and start dictating to them how they do that that's not our role. Our role is to give this information to them, tell them that there's that this award is available, and for their community to come together and decide if they have anybody. There's 6 awards. There's 2 in each category for youth, adult, and seniors, and they're presented annually on the International Volunteers Day. So this is a yearly event that happens, and it's up to the community to put the names forward, and all we can do is give them the information and then let them carry it from there. I don't think we want to get involved any further than that.
I'm thinking with this letter, is it on a link on our website and social media? Okay, you're working on that, okay. Any other comments?
I guess to what Alice is getting, when the community has recognized them, then after that has gone through the process, then council can recognize the ones that have been recognized. But up until that has happened, we stay out of it.
No, let them nominate their own.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Any other questions? Don, did you have a question down there? Okay.
No, just a comment, and Carson recognizes its own volunteers. And you don't volunteer to have a pat in the back, you volunteer to improve your community, so. I know where Alice is coming from too, but like Ben said, it's up to the community.
Okay, Brenda?
Well, and I guess that could be a program, something that if the community associations wanted to connect with Liaison through our website, then that's something that they could look at down the road. If they wanted to, if the community associations wanted to make sure that their volunteers are recognized, they could contact our county and have them put on the website, like all our smaller communities like Nightingale, Lyalta, Gleason, Clooney, all those other places that we have, Dallam, all those places. And if they wanted to do something, they could contact and they could make an announcement through our website, right? So, something they could do.
Social media? Lisa said it's being in the works, so.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I didn't want to dictate anything to them. What I wanted to do was somehow get them engaged. How do we get the communities engaged to come forward and you know, celebrate their volunteers? So it wasn't as much as putting, you know, dictating or saying you have to do something. It's just get the engagement going.
Okay, Eagle Lake RV Resort letter? Thank you note from Gleason Fire and Rescue. Crime data report from Strathmore RCMP. And I think that's all for correspondence. Brenda?
Also move the items as correspondence as information.
Okay, any questions, comments, actions from the, all in favor? Carried. Request for decision, Golden Hills, that was that handout. Ben?
Question through the chair to Alan. What is this, when they talk about a domestic line, what's that got to do with the school, domestic, is that separate from the school, or what are they talking about? Well, in the letter on the back there, they're talking that there was a domestic line, that somebody opened the valve and left the water free flow, but I'm trying to figure out what do they mean, a domestic line? Yeah.
That would have been a line inside the school. It was a domestic water line, potable water line inside the school. It drained into the drain. So it's an
So
internal
they
line.
just, somebody opened it up and just let it run, flow into the.
I'm assuming by mistake, yes.
Because it was originally as a flush line, is what I'm understanding.
Yes.
What other water do they get from us but domestic? Okay, so that's,
They're referring to a line inside the school located near a drain. That's what we're referring to.
Yeah, after the meter.
How often do we read the meters?
Chairman, meters are read every 2 months.
Okay. So, because I'm noticing that, Yeah, I guess we had this issue once before, when we had one of these lines open, and there was a question about how often we do read the meters, and whether we're like, especially because this is a $22,000 touch compared to a $457 one. So,
Alice?
Well, I can talk about this in the community hall. We had a toilet running and our bill went to almost $1,000 and from one time to another, and we're not eligible to have somebody pay for it. It was an issue that was within internally. County is normally not paid for those issues. If we can't do it to a community association, the school should be treated no differently. It's not up to the county to go and walk around the buildings. It's up to them to maintain their buildings, make sure that the water is not running or you know, it's a maintenance issue. Same as the community hall. So we had to replace the toilet and pay the bill. So I have sympathy for them. I don't like paying that big bill either when something like that happens because it isn't done deliberately. But the reality is everybody's responsible for their own maintenance, not the county.
Council's wishes.
I shall make a motion that we follow the RFP presented to council and
Accept the
Pardon?
letter as information.
information. Yeah.
Okay, any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, it's 11:30. We have an appointment with our MLA, Derek Fildebrandt. I see he just walked in the door, so welcome. And I just ask you to come up to the podium and turn the mic on, yes. Yes, please, because our meetings are recorded, and when you turn on the mic, now the camera is on you. Okay.
Thank you very much. How much time do we have, Mr. Beef? Much as I want. Much as you guys want. I'll take all your questions while I'm here. Thank you very. I've got some presentation here I'd like to distribute to members of council, if I can. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for inviting me to join you at council today. I'm going to make a presentation to you on my submission to the Electoral Boundaries Commission. I'll take all of your questions that you might have about it on this. But after we're done that, I'd be very happy to take any non-Electoral Boundary Commission questions that you have, get your feedback about what I can do to help represent the county better in the legislature and across Alberta. So we can, I'm very happy to add that on as an item if that's something council members would like to do. So if everyone has it here. Now I know I drafted this some time ago, and I think there was a bit of confusion in the past about what this meant. It is meant to be read in its entirety. It's, if it's only the highlights read, then I think there'll be some confusion. So I'll just give a bit of an overview first. The Electoral Boundaries Commission normally redraws our constituencies about every 2 elections. This happened a little bit earlier because there was an early election. Traditionally, very large geographic constituencies are also not large by population. It's one or the other. The trade-off, you know, traditionally we want boundaries to be as close to the average of the population in the province as possible. But in the event that drawing the map connects communities that don't have as much together or would result in them being overpopulated, then it often, larger constituencies should skew to lower populations traditionally, and that's in every jurisdiction across Canada and frankly most of the democratic world. This Electoral Boundary Commission is extraordinary in the sense that there are both massive geographic and populated constituencies that are the same. That is almost unheard of in the democratic world, and certainly in our traditions here in Alberta. Some of the constituencies drawn are not natural. Now, that being said, large constituencies are going to put communities together that often don't talk to one another for simple reasons of population. That does happen. But some of them, we can make these as natural as possible with natural boundaries and trying to keep county boundaries intact. And in some cases, including ours here, we would be massively overpopulated, while others would be significantly underpopulated. The proposed constituency of Drumheller Strathmore would be 16% overpopulated. We would be, if I'm not mistaken, the second most overpopulated constituency in the province after another large geographic riding of what they're proposing of Drayton Valley Sundre, which is all of current, the vast majority of current Rimbey Rocky Mountain House Sundre, which is a giant riding, and adding in Drayton Valley. So they would be hugely geographic and in population, and we would be in Drumheller Strathmore, huge in geography and in population, and that's really where I have an issue here. So I'll run through a few things. First, my critique of what has been proposed. We'll start with our area here in the proposed Drumheller Strathmore. The Electoral Boundary Commission proposed that Drumheller Strathmore be 16% overpopulated. So every single vote cast in our constituency would count 16% less than the average vote across the province. That would mean, so we're overpopulated, meaning we have an extra 7,500 people in the constituency. That is about the equivalent of having Coaldale, Banff, Innisfail, Drayton Valley, or Drumheller added to the constituency above the population necessary for us to be at the average. And that is extremely unusual, as I said, for large rural constituencies to be overpopulated. The legislation allows for us to be plus or negative 25%, but the variance is normally used to ensure that large geographic constituencies aren't too big. But in this case, they've used it in the opposite sense of what the spirit of the legislation is intended for. Drumheller Strathmore, I don't believe it's a natural constituency in the sense that we're trying to connect areas with some different interests. Now, it's not. I think Drumheller and Strathmore have actually quite a bit in common. I think our two communities would be not a bad match, but it's not just Drumheller and Strathmore. That's the center of the constituency. We're talking about a constituency that goes from Lyalta to Saskatchewan and from Stettler to Vulcan. I don't care who you are. That's a big geographic area to cover. Especially if we're to do our jobs beyond just being a private member or a backbencher, if you're to do anything actually trying to achieve provincial-wide policy with a portfolio or anything, it's quite a bit to cover. But I'll go through in a bit more. So it's not a natural constituency. I believe we have parts of our constituency are within the Calgary Regional Partnerships. We have people on one end of the constituency who will commute for work into Calgary, and people on the other end of the constituency who are more likely to go to Regina for supplies. There would be 38 municipalities in the proposed constituency. So 6 towns, 14 villages, 10 unincorporated communities, and 5 counties and special areas, with approximately 97 elected officials the MLA would work with. So there are 87 members of the legislature. It takes me long enough to get to all their names. But 97 elected officials within this proposed constituency. So we would have more elected officials locally than there is in the entire legislature. And so while it's certainly possible and doable, it's quite a bit to do. County lines are not kept intact. Now, our county right here is kept intact, thankfully. That's one of the few bright spots, so we can be thankful for that. But other counties are divided. The northern area of Vulcan County is added. Stettler County is divided, and on the other end of our current constituency of Strathmore Brooks, Newell County is divided. And so while we are intact, though, do remember, if your MLA is also having to deal with many other county issues, the amount of time that can be spent on Wheatland becomes diminished. There's a finite amount of time. And so if I've got, say, 1,000 people in Vulcan County and 1,000 people in Stettler County attached, but not a full county, that it will tax on my time that comes from other areas. And so as much as possible, I believe we should keep municipal boundaries intact as much as it is possible. And it is not always possible, but I think it is needlessly divided here and without good reason. Siksika Nation, I do believe, could be naturally a part of one of two constituencies, current Strathmore Brooks and current Little Bow, or proposed Drumheller Strathmore, or proposed Vulcan Tabor. It doesn't naturally fall within either because it doesn't have a natural boundary because it straddles both sides of the Bow River. It's its own jurisdiction. So my view is it could go to either, but it should probably go to the one that needs more population from a population perspective. I think it fits very well with at least with the Strathmore area, but it also fits very well also with the Vulcan area. So my general idea for Siksika Nation is that they would just go with whichever of those two constituencies require more population to balance out. I have less critiques of the proposed Brooks Cypress site. Obviously, that's not the major concern of members here, but it is still half of the constituency I represent. It is not it's not overpopulated, or it's only overpopulated by 2%, so it's quite close to the margin and quite reasonable from a population perspective. And it's not. I think Brooks could naturally be joined to Strathmore or Cypress County. I think. Either are fair matches, so I have less critique there. My main critique is that they divide Newell County without a good reason, giving a large section of it south of Brooks in the Rolling Hills, Scandia area into the proposed new constituency of Tabor-Vulcan. There's not a good reason for that, other than that Tabor-Vulcan is underpopulated and they're trying to find more population for it, but they're doing it in a very, I'd say, less than logical way by cutting up county boundaries where they can actually do it by keeping counties intact and giving them the population they need rather than just carving little pieces off here and there. So wherever possible, I think it is a cardinal sin of redistribution to divide counties unless you have very little other choice. I think Rocky View inevitably must be chopped up because of its geographic shape and its very high population. So what I've proposed is what I think is a more effective redistribution for Southeast Alberta. Now, the fact is we're going to lose a seat in Southeast Alberta. We're going to lose 3 out of rural, 1 going to Calgary, 1 to Edmonton, and 1 to the greater Calgary area, mostly in the Cochrane Airdrie area. This boundary commission, I think, values population equity more than anything else. They're supposed to balance population with effective representation, the ability of an MLA to represent an area and that area to have some coherent interests within it. And that's always difficult in rural areas because I go between Strathmore and Brooks all the time. The vast majority of the population aren't going to Brooks and Brooks is not coming here. But they're supposed to try and balance those things, and I do not think they do. This commission is, well, remember, 3 are appointed by the government, 2 are appointed by the official opposition. So while the official opposition have a voice in it, we are outvoted. And the fact is we're going to lose 3 seats. My perspective is that we're not going to be able to change their minds on that, and we should make the very best of it. And I want to be respectful of the work they did to try to, as much as possible, work along their lines and come to a more optimal outcome than they are proposing. So if we accept as a given that we're losing a seat out of southeast, south central, or east central Alberta, that means something's going to give somewhere. So luckily for us, Strathmore Brooks is the only large rural constituency south of Red Deer that has the correct population. We're the only one. Largely because of growth in Western Wheatland and in Strathmore. That's kept our population up, whereas virtually every other large rural southern constituency has been losing population relative to the average of the rest of the province. So overall, my proposal would equalize populations of the proposed large southeastern constituencies. Right now there is a variance of +16 for proposed Drumheller Strathmore to negative 11 for Tabor Vulcan. My proposal will bring the top we'll bring it down, and it will bring the bottom significantly up, bringing us all closer to the average of 0, which is something that this commission, I know, likes. They like everything as close to 0 as possible. And this proposal restores several county municipal boundaries, which I think is a very important objective. And something that we should be trying to help our neighbors with, even though we are not divided ourselves. I think it's good for us to try to help other counties to achieve that goal. And as I said, the less we divide a single constituency between more municipalities, it means more time focused on the current municipalities within the constituency. And as much as possible, I want the proposed boundaries to have common interests between them. And of course, there are different interests between Strathmore and Wheatland and Newell and Brooks, but I think overall we find a pretty good common interest for the most part. But the more we try to spread it out, if we go from Vulcan to Stettler and Lyalta to Saskatchewan, we start to spread ourselves pretty thin in terms of our common interests. So the core of what I propose is to maintain Strathmore Brooks. It is a natural constituency. We have natural borders. We have the Red Deer in the north. We have the Bow in the south. We have 2 counties, Wheatland and Newell, and all of their inlaid smaller municipalities are contained within it. We are a very neat and watertight constituency that just makes sense. Both ends of the constituency are connected by a major and obvious transportation corridor, the Trans-Canada Highway. As I said, we have natural boundaries, and we are kept intact. We have no need to divide any of our municipalities, which is a real strength of our area. Our population is, as I said, the only large southeastern constituency that is even close to the provincial average. We are at +2 right now. As the population of the province grows, we might go to maybe -2 at most by the next election, but we would be very well within an acceptable variance. And with Strathmore growing over the next, expected growth of 7% over the next 5 years, I expect that our numbers will stay pretty close to the provincial average. So as I said, under the proposed boundaries, southern Newell County would be separated from Brooks, which is a real hit to that area and effective representation. I want to see Newell County kept together. That's one of my priorities here. And this is the only way, I believe, to make that happen. I know councillors in both Brooks and in Newell want to see that happen as well. In my discussions with them, I've emphasized that simply proposing one, there's a domino effect here. If you make one change somewhere, there's going to be changes right across the province. It will ripple. And so my advice to them was, if they want to ask for that part of Newell County back, Rolling Hills, Scandia area, if they want to ask for that back, they have to propose where Tabor Vulcan would get the new population from. Because if you just ask for population from an underpopulated riding into a riding that is at the correct population, the disparities become even larger, and the Boundary Commission will probably not accept it unless we propose another area for that population to come from, which is why I've tried to take a very regional approach across the entire province. So, we would, under this proposal, just completely restore Strathmore Brooks as it is, and meaning that we restore Newell County to its integrity, taking it out of the proposed Tabor Vulcan. And I will tell you in a second where I propose that population to come from. So in this, the Drumheller-Stettler constituency is currently significantly underpopulated. The Commission has not shown a willingness to grant it status as a special constituency, allowing it to go over 50% of the population. They've only granted that distinction to NDP-held ridings in the north. They are not granting it to Progressive Conservative or Wild Rose-held ridings. That creates a significant disruption as they pull apart Drumheller-Stettler. The Commission has proposed that the town of Stettler itself be attached to the new constituency of Wainwright-Stettler, and that the entirety of the rest of Drumheller-Stettler, already one of the biggest geographic constituencies in the province, everything pretty much that is not, including the town of Stettler itself, be attached to us. So Strathmore, and then also attaching Siksika Nation and Northern Vulcan County. This proposal, which, and I have consulted very closely with the current member for Drumheller Stettler, Rick Strankman, and has his support for this, I believe, is to take the rump of Drumheller Stettler, so all of Drumheller Stettler minus the town of Stettler, but still including parts of the county of Stettler, and attach that to the proposed Cypress County section that the commission has proposed would be detached already and go to Brooks. So the eastern part of, I believe that the eastern part of that constituency of Drumheller Stettler have a shared interest with Cypress County. They're a common trade corridor. I think they have very aligned interests. It's still a very large geographically large constituency, but pretty similar to what they'd be proposing geographically for Drumheller Strathmore anyway. But it would be going from 16% overpopulation to 10% overpopulation. And because of that area, the province is losing population relative to the rest of the province, it would probably be down to right around 0 by the election afterwards, after this election. So it would be geographically very similar in size to Drumheller Strathmore, but it would bring the size of it down. I would propose to modify what they are proposing for Tabor Vulcan, which is they've gotten rid of Little Bow, and they've gotten rid of Cypress, Medicine Hat, and kind of just scrambled them all up in one big pot. I propose to change it, make it more effective, and actually increase its population, bring it closer to the average. So we would not be increasing the size of Tabor Vulcan materially. It's already a very large proposed constituency. We don't want to make it larger for the sake of our neighbors. But we would be proposing to take it from -11 underpopulation to just -2, right pretty much on the average. And that's something that I think the commission would be very receptive to, because population is really what they're focused on. It would not materially affect its geographic size. And very importantly, it would return the northern section of Vulcan County, which is severed from the rest of Vulcan County, back to a single constituency, which I think is very important for the people of Vulcan County. And as I said, it would be less dividing of the time for who is representing Wheatland and Strathmore. It would also propose to put Siksika Nation in that constituency. As I said, I believe logically it could fall within either, but Tabor Vulcan is 11% underpopulated. We're 16% overpopulated. It doesn't make sense to attach it to us when we're over and they're under. So all of this would equalize our populations. It would more than compensate Tabor Vulcan for the population it would lose by giving back that section of Newell County to Strathmore Brooks. Because if we want to get that population back to keep Newell County together, then we have to propose where it comes from. And I'm proposing to give it to them with returning Northern Vulcan County to Vulcan and to give Siksika Nation as well. And that would more than compensate them and bring their population from -11 to -2. So on the very last page, you'll see a map. Now, it's not colored, so it's a little more difficult for you to see, actually. The really big thick lines are the lines that I have very clumsily drawn with a marker there. Those are the thick lines are the lines I am proposing. Well, the thinner lines you can see, the ones that are nice and neat and straight, those are the ones from the Boundary Commission. So now if you have questions, because this will be harder to follow along, because these lines are supposed to be colored in the version that I created. They're not colored here. So what you'll see here is the way they've proposed. You can see the boundary between our two, Newell and Wheatland County. They've proposed to cut it. We would keep that. And you'll see right, if you look to where Siksika Nation is, you'll see the big thick line, and then you'll see a straight thinner line below it. That thinner line below it is proposed currently to be attached to Drumheller Strathmore. So you'll see part of Vulcan County, Milo, Arrowhead, Mosley, that area, and Siksika moving up into us. I'm proposing to give it back to them. And then you'll see right below Brooks, you'll see that kind of corner cut out right south of Brooks. You'll see where the big thick line is. That means I'm proposing to keep it within us. And then you'll see to the east of Brooks, that northern Cypress County, there's a straight line and then kind of attaches back down to the South Saskatchewan there. That is where the commission has proposed to cut Cypress County and attach to Brooks. I'm proposing to keep that as a unit, but move it into the Drumheller constituency. So I know I've just said quite a bit. I hope everyone's been able to follow along without falling asleep on the idea of redrawing these maps. But I've made a real point that we have to take a regional view to this. It's not just Strathmore Brooks. As the MLA for Strathmore Brooks, of course, I love to keep our constituency together. That's and it's my job to defend the interests of this community, and I'll defend it regardless of what shape the constituency takes in the future. But I think we have a good constituency that has served us well since 1997, the first election that Strathmore Brooks was constituted in. And I think we have a good natural partnership with Brooks. But, you know, there are other partners in the area that I think Strathmore and Wheatland can be paired with. But I think that this is the best from a regional perspective, because it tries to make constituencies that make more sense, that keep municipal boundaries intact, have more congruent interests, and importantly have more equal populations. Because I think it'd be a damn shame if we had the largest geographic constituency south of Edmonton and the highest populated constituency in the province. I think it'd be very unfair to the people of this this area if we had both a massive geographic constituency and a massively populated constituency. So that's my presentation. I hope you'll take it as a whole, as a regional approach. I should also say that I have consulted very closely with surrounding MLAs. This plan has the support of the MLA for Drumheller-Stettler, Rick Streitman, has the support of the MLA for Olds Disbury Three Hills, Nathan Cooper, the MLA for Chestermere Rocky View, Leela Ahir, and the MLA for Little Bow, David Schneider. And then on the MLA for Cypress Medicine Hat, I've explained it in detail to Drew Barnes, although I don't think he's taking a specific position on it because they've completely cooked his area pretty badly, and I'm not sure how he wants to make sense of that. But he's certainly aware of this. He's not shown any opposition to what I'm proposing here, but he is certainly aware. So we have the support of virtually nearly all of the surrounding MLAs who have the support for this plan, which is important because if we want to get a better outcome for southeastern and east central Alberta, we need to be pulling in the same direction. We need the MLAs pulling together. And ideally, we also really need our local municipal officials pulling together as well to get the best possible outcome for the people that we represent. So I would be asking for hopefully your support today in this as an approach for us to take at the Electoral Boundary Commission when it comes to Brooks on Friday. So with that, I'll take all of your questions. So we'll just stick to Electoral Boundaries Commission for the time being, and then when we've decided that we're done with that topic, I'll be happy to take questions on other topics that you have.
Okay, any questions for our MLA? Ellis?
Go ahead. No, you-
Good morning. Thanks for coming. I've been reading over a lot on this, and my first impression when we discussed it was exactly what you said of the huge geographical area. And how does one person do justice to
I'm prepared to buy a
anyone,
bush plane.
right? That was my big issue in the first, and breaking up, like putting Vulcan in, just what you've lined out was pretty much where I was coming from. There was a question, you made a comment about the geographical area going to Regina. Why would you pick Regina? It's a way further.
It's more of a joke.
Joke.
See, my humor is.
I didn't get the joke.
I get into trouble with this
Yeah, okay.
more often than I should be. No, I'm just saying because we would border Saskatchewan,
That would be
many of
sending-
the cross-cultural communities,
Okay.
People have they'll know more neighbors in Saskatchewan than in Alberta in some cases. Rick Streitman the current MLA for, he lives in Ontario, which is right on the Saskatchewan border. And he's pretty much a dual citizen of both provinces.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so just, it was a, my way of just saying that, you know, much of the constituency would be closer to Saskatchewan than to actually British Columbia.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was trying to figure out what you were
Actually, if you look,
thinking.
if you
I was
look at.
taking it seriously.
Yeah, no, sorry. I have a bad habit of doing that. Actually, so if you look at this map, you'll see, look at the far western tip of the map of Strathmore, of Drumheller Strathmore. The far western tip of our constituency is closer to BC than to Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
And then the far eastern side is Saskatchewan. So we
Yeah.
will literally be stretching across half the province.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, it was just a comment on the massive geographic size.
okay.
A massive geographic size is one thing, but to also have it overpopulated at the same time, I think is grossly
Well,
unfair.
you can't do justice to the public, and what are you there for, other than to serve the public?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, you're not going to be doing your job.
Well,
You can't
look,
because of the size and the
if this is the
distance, right?
constituency they put down in front of me, I'll do my damnedest.
Yeah.
You know, I guess we have to be fair to the growing parts of the province that have people. We don't want them underrepresented. It's just fair, but at the same time, we have to be reasonable in how we're drawing these constituencies and.
So the other question was, Stettler, you commented that it would take most of it. Is that all of it, or is there little bits going to be cut off
So-
into that other area?
So I don't even actually show it here. The proposed constituency of Drumheller Strathmore will touch the very tip of the bottom of the town of Stettler. So it'll touch the bottom tip. It won't go into the town of Stettler, but it will include significant portions of the county of Stettler.
The way they've got it, but you were saying you were going to redraw
yes.
that.
Oh, yes, yes.
The redraw, that's Drumheller Cypress. So they'd be included in the Drumheller Cypress.
My preference would be that the Stettler County portion that's been attached to the Drumheller Strathmore routing, that the county that all that Stettler County would go up to the new constituency of Wainwright Stettler,
Okay.
or Stettler Wainwright, whichever way they put it.
Okay.
To keep that county together. Now, Stettler Wainwright, off the top of my mind, is 8% overpopulation already. So it would, so they can't grow too much more. They're already, all these rural I shouldn't say all, but most of the rural constituencies are overpopulated. This doesn't happen. This is a new thing. This just doesn't happen. So this is a very unfair redraw to rural Alberta.
Yeah, hence your comment about making a new area out of Drumheller. And, you know, but they don't want to do that. They're taking
Yeah.
it away to give the
There are other
urbans
large-
another vote,
Yeah.
like 3 votes.
There
right?
are other large rural constituencies that are significantly underpopulated, but they're all in the far north.
Yeah.
They're all in the,
Yeah,
we can only speculate about why those would be allowed.
yeah.
Okay. Ben?
Just a couple of questions. When you were talking about the total of 38 municipalities, you listed 6 towns, 14 villages, 10 unincorporated communities, and 5 counties. Those unincorporated communities are represented by the counties, right?
Yes.
So they're not municipalities.
No, they are not.
So you've only got 25, not 38. So just as a correction. The other one, I know I've talked to the Reeve of Newell on numerous occasions, and according to your fix to what the Electoral Boundaries Commission has done to keep Strathmore Brooks together, but on your map, when you draw it out, you're taking the east portion of Brooks, Newell and Brooks out of the Strathmore area, and the main thing that the Newell and Brooks want is that their whole municipality remain as one, and they're losing it. You're bringing it back in on the south side, but according to your map, you've cut them out on the east side.
No, sorry, Ben, I think.
Well, you look at your map and you look at the one that's in place now with Strathmore Brooks, and you're coming down in a different line than what's shown right now. You're losing part of the southeast corner of the Newell County.
Yeah, your line is just a little bit
Oh,
north.
yes, sorry. That's a hand-drawn map.
Yeah.
So it's not, that's not
Well,
exactly.
I understand that, but when I'm looking at this, and I know what Newell is looking at, and their main concern is same as ours, that they retain
Yeah,
whole in there, and
so
according,
the official parts of the submission are in the written text, where I just say draw the line at the county, that's the
Okay.
official submission. The map back here, because it's drawn by hand, you'll see some areas where it goes outside the lines, and see between Carson, Kainai, and there, like, you'll see, that's a hand-drawn map, so you'll have
Okay.
to forgive my, my artistic.
no, that's fine. My other question is that, in talking to some of the counselors from the northern portions up in Starland and Stettler, in that area, they are also making submissions, and they're looking at some correction to that. Vulcan's looking at some correction. So by the time, if they look at the south side, and I mentioned this to you the other day, that I don't know why the Siksika Nation makes any difference where they go, because they're not, they don't vote.
Oh, yeah, no, they vote.
In a provincial election, although they're federal?
They have the right to vote in provincial elections.
Oh, yeah.
Do they?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Indian Affairs falls under federal jurisdiction, but they do have the right to vote in
Okay, then, but I know Arrowwood in that area would, if Vulcan makes their application, they would, and if the electoral commission looks at that, by the time they get finished, the 16% over may not be 16%, we may be down around 5 or 6% by the time they get finished readjusting that. So my main concern, and I know that when our board looked at it, not this board, but our PC board looked at it, our main concern is that we stay as one unit, Wheatland County is one unit, and Newell is one unit, and if it works, that the commissions will look at it and say, yes, that makes sense, and they'll keep it together. But I know what Reeve of Newell is saying, that if they don't have an issue with Cypress and Brooks, Newell being one, because it's back to what they were prior to that. And their main concern is that they stay together.
So I just
So-
had a discussion with the Reeve and representatives of the city of Brooks. And you and I and Mayor Al had. And I think, although this will be decided by their council, my impression of that together, then they have to propose how they would get the pocket to compensate Tabor Vulcan
Right.
population, because there's very, very little chance that this commission, which is population, is going to take negative 11 and give to a constituency that's positive 2. And that's why I think we have to take a regional, I've taken a very regional approach to this. At the end of the day, I would be sad if our constituency was divided, but at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world. I mean, on the other side of the constituency too, but counties together, we have to take a very regional approach, because there's, you move one piece and there's a domino effect. And that's why I've taken a regional approach to this, and I've gone to some lengths to try and get buy-in from representatives all the way from Stettler to Vulcan to Tabor. And I've left discussions with municipal Brooks to the MLAs there. I don't think it's my place. But if we have a regional approach, and when we're all pushing together, we're going to have a significantly better chance of getting a more optimal outcome than if different constituencies are acting in different ways, or if different councils and different MLAs are not working together. So my very strong advice to the Newell and Brooks councils was that if we want to keep the dual, we have to take a regional approach, as I'm proposing here, giving that population back.
Which in that area is not a big population either.
No, so actually, in this, one reason I believe this will succeed is because the population I'm proposing to put into Tabor Vulcan is significantly larger than the population we'd be proposing to take out of it and give back to Newell County. So that's why I think there'd be a much more significant chance that the Electoral Boundary Commission would accept that. Ask you that they move it as a standalone.
So the other question I had was, your Brooks Cypress, you're saying that Brooks could naturally be joined to either Strathmore or Cypress County. When you're talking Brooks, are you talking Brooks Newell, or are you talking Brooks all by itself? Because they don't want to be,
No. Brooks, when I say, I mean the Brooks region. So when we say Strathmore Brooks, we also mean Wheatland Newell. We actually want to more appropriately name the riding, but we don't want these ridings to be paragraph long. So when I say Brooks, I mean the Brooks region, Newell, the whole Newell region. So I think the Brooks Newell area could logically be connected to Strathmore, Wheatland, or to Cypress. I don't think it'd be a great disservice one way or another.
and they don't have an issue with either one as long as they stay whole.
Yeah,
Right.
but from the perspective of keeping the population of Strathmore, Wheatland reasonable, and the perspective of keeping Brooks, Newell intact, this is the logical outcome. I'll say that this is about draft number 40. This is about draft number 40. There are many, many drafts we've gone through. I've tried to slice this maps 6 ways to Sunday, and this was the inevitable conclusion that we came to. Because Strathmore Brooks is the only large rural constituency in southern, pretty much south of Red Deer, it is the inescapable conclusion that that is the base from which to build out. It keeps municipalities intact. We've got natural borders, and we're an existing constituency. So to build out from there is the most logical thing to do, in my view.
The other question then, what you're doing is you're putting Brooks Cypress, now that'll become Cypress Drumheller Cypress?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see that whole corner there?
Yeah,
That they're proposing to attach to Brooks,
would go up.
it would just go up instead of to the
Yeah.
west. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
So, and like I said the other day, there's merit to what you're saying, but politically, you know what they're trying to do
Oh, yeah.
in Edmonton. So, you know what happens when you push too hard too. So,
Well, that's why I'm proposing not to push hard. I'm proposing changes around the edges. There are many who want us to just fight this as an attack on rural Alberta, which it could fairly be characterized as. Maybe 2 seats leaving, but 3 is, I think, too much. I could see the argument for 2, but not 3. And this is very unfair to rural Alberta. Now, but if we wanted to push hard, we would just say this is wrong. We should just leave all these constituencies intact. What I've tried to do here is say, okay, I accept that you're taking a seat out of here, and we're going to work with the framework of what you've given us, but we're going to try and propose some smart adjustments to make sure the populations are even closer than they've proposed, and that we keep county lines intact. So
no, I understand exactly what you're saying, but where I'm coming from is the ripple effect. And you know what the ripple effect will do if you make the presentation and we're the only ones that aren't getting touched, really, you're under yours, we're really not being affected by it. If they leave us exactly the way we are with a little tweak on the one end, every other one around us is going to start hollering because they're being affected by it. So our concern is that if it works, fine, but if not, we do not want to be split in half. If the commission takes a look at it and says, okay, we'll readjust it, but and we end up like we were before, where we end up with the fifth. Is that me? Or is that the fifth? The 564 was the boundary before over towards Rocky Ford, and we were in with Shirley McClellan's area, and the rest were south, and we could not get the MLAs to work together come hell or high water. So that's where.
yeah, no, you've got under this proposal, I don't think there's any real serious chance of that happening. Also, when that was the case, Strathmore was not nearly the size that it is, and that has upset the entire balance of the region. Strathmore was never until Strathmore Brooks, Strathmore wasn't considered an integral foundation of any one constituency. Now it is, because it's so large. So no, we do need to keep Wheatland County intact. And I think that's absolutely something I will be driving home when I present, and it's something I would ask you guys to drive home. It's something I know my Mayor L is committed to driving home. But at least as great an issue as dividing a county is the fact that every single vote of our shared constituents will be worth 16% less than the average vote in this province. That is not fair to the people that we represent, and I think we have to do something about that.
Well, and I understand what Ben is saying, but I can't see Vulcan being upset because we're restoring them. And we're putting the population into
Yeah.
where they're short, not taking away and overpopulating our areas. So it's balancing the population to the south. So I can't see where they would be really upset.
And Stettler and Newell, we're
Yeah.
restoring counties here.
Yeah, and, you know, if you sit there and say nothing, you're going to get what they're going to give you. So at least we're giving them a solution and a reason for it. And this is what my argument was when I first started this. Here we're taking little slivers of other counties away from them and sticking them in with Wheatland County. For what reason? To overpopulate it by 16%. Didn't make sense back then when I looked at it. And this is restoring those other counties, and New will be restored. I mean, it's, to me, a good logical explanation for, we're not saying no, 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 we're saying, okay, let's balance it out a little bit. Let's think of changing and restoring those boundaries back to the people, to the counties that it was before. So to me, this is a better solution than what we've got now, like what they're proposing. So I'm for it. That was my biggest problem when I looked at all of this being cut up and they're taking pieces off of every county. I don't understand why they would even go that way, but.
Yeah,
So I'm in favor of this because to me, it makes more sense, to me, more logical sense. We've given them a solution for saying what we're saying, so.
Thank you, Brenna. Yeah, no, I think there's a misunderstanding among maybe some members of the Electoral Boundary Commission and thinking of what the job of an MLA is. A big city MLA, local issues might involve advocating for funding for a single school, but it doesn't involve working with a lot of different municipal officials, maybe a single councillor. Whereas in this job, you know, I'm working with councils often directly. We should probably meet as a council with me maybe more often, but I often meet directly with Glenn and with the mayors. I don't think they quite appreciate how important it is to keep municipalities together. They get it a little bit, but I think the gravity of it is somewhat lost on them. So I think we actually make our neighbors happy by putting forward solutions that help to restore county boundaries at least as much as possible. I couldn't find a way to do it on the Cypress side, just the way it worked, but at least it's a natural boundary of the river. But yeah, and I think you've attached to it well where I'm going with this, that we're accepting that they're making these changes, but we want to find a more balanced way to do it, to respect these boundaries and to respect trying to keep our populations more reasonably simpatico with each other.
Okay, any other questions? Do we want to discuss it more? Do we want to break for lunch or?
Well, so I'll just say, if I can before you close. So my ask of council would be, I know you want to keep one of your priorities that you've decided, I think rightfully, is the fight to keep the county intact. That's important, but I think asking for a closer parity of the number of voters in this constituency to others would be it's a very, very important thing that I would ask that you consider adding to your priorities of what you ask for before the commission, that our votes should not be watered down here, especially when Strathmore Brooks is already a very large constituency, and we're proposing to make it 36,000 square kilometers, the size of Taiwan. So I would add that as a priority, and I would ask for your help when the Electoral Boundary Commission comes, I know you have, at least a representative of the county is set to
We have
appear.
an appointment for it.
Yeah. So I would encourage the council to consider this as a regional approach, that we're not just asking for just one thing. We're not just asking to keep the county intact, or just population, or just Strathmore Brooks restored, that we take a regional approach to this. The council's got, the commission's got some pretty smart people on it. And if we just ask for one-offs, if we ask for just keeping the county intact, or just population, or just Strathmore Brooks, it won't go very far. So we have to take a bigger, broader approach to it. And I would emphasize, particularly to Ben's comments, that I think our neighbors will be happy with what we're proposing here. We are proposing more to keep boundaries intact and respect that, and equalize population so that everybody's vote counts more appropriately than to how it should be.
Okay. Well, thanks, Derek, for
you.
coming.
Did you guys have any questions outside of electoral boundaries? I'm happy to answer whatever you have, unless you're really hungry for lunch.
I got one.
Go ahead.
When the two parties combine, Wild Rose and Conservative, under a new party, how's this going to affect, like you're taking in towns, let's say, down at Brooks, that's a union town because of the plant down there. And union is usually NDP. I shouldn't say that, but it is. And how are these boundaries, like, how is the one party, the single party, going to affect the vote, our vote in Edmonton?
Well, I'd say, I don't like to presume the voters, but in the last election, at least, I won Strathmore Brooks by the same margin as I did, a very similar margin as I did in Strathmore. Actually, the NDP were stronger here than they were in Brooks. I think that was just proximity to Calgary and the media markets, frankly. But I'm pretty confident that under a united party, regardless if we're two constituencies in Strathmore and Brooks, or if we're one, I feel pretty confident that a united party will be the representative for the area. So I've made it I've been on the warpath for 1.5 years trying to make this a reality. This is the single greatest thing I believe we can do for Alberta right now, bringing us together, frankly ending some of the factionalism within our own constituency, that we can stop fighting one another, that we can all get on the same team, pulling in the same direction for this constituency. And I really look forward to having new people on the same team as me come Saturday. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks for coming in, Derek.
Thanks, guys.
You want a quick sandwich or something? Or?
I've got a lunch meeting.
Okay.
Does everyone here have my phone number?
I know I got it.
Okay.
Lunchtime. Public hearings at 1 o'clock.